Hi, my name is Jackie Sue Grayla, and I am doing this presentation for Addiction Family Counseling. I am currently pursuing my bachelor's degree in human services, and I am enjoying everything I'm learning. I know that this class is going to help me to be able to be better in the human services department. So the movie I chose for my assignment was The Blind for my case study. So the movie The Blind is based on the true story of the Robertson family, or the Duck Dynasty family, as they have become to be known as. Phil Robertson, he struggles with alcohol addiction in this movie. It gives you, in the beginning of the movie, it gives you a background of his upbringing. And in his household, his mom had suffered with mental illness in the 1950s and was hospitalized many times while his father was away working. So it showed him as the oldest, and he became the caretaker and the hero of the family. He tried to make everything okay and be there for his siblings. Um, in high school, he met Miss K, who he ended up marrying, and they had a child before, before she was 18. So he goes off to college and he starts a football career, but he wants to be with his family. So he quits his football career, comes back to their town, and he ends up getting a job as a teacher. Up until this point, it doesn't really show any kind of addiction struggles on his part. So after he gets his teacher job, though, he starts hanging out with another teacher, and that's where his addiction starts. He starts to become addicted to alcohol. And taking a look at the DSM-5, Phil does meet the criteria for substance abuse disorder. Some of the criteria Phil meets is that he starts spending more time partying than at home with his family. He starts drinking at work while he's teaching. He lies to his wife and family about his alcohol use. He quits his job at so as a teacher, he quits his job at some point so he could go drink more. And then Phil ends up spending most of his money on alcohol and partying instead of bills or on his family. This starts to put a strain on his marriage. He becomes violent towards Miss K. So it just starts to show the progression of addiction. Starts out by drinking, and soon enough, it is just affecting his whole life, and his family is paying the price. As Phil's addiction starts to go into the severe stage, so does the damage on his family. Kay takes on the role of the caregiver as she tries any way to help save Phil and her marriage. Phil leaves her alone to raise their three boys with little money many times. So in the movie, there's quite a few times where he takes the money, he leaves, and she's there to fend for herself and her boys. Kay stands by Phil's side and tries to figure out ways to help him. Because of this, her boys witness arguing, erratic behavior from Phil, and lack some of the necessities they need. However, Kay tries to do the best she can by pretending everything is okay at home with Phil to others. There is one point where Phil buys a bar, and it just shows the codependency with Miss K and him, because she knows this is a bad idea. She tries to warn him that this is a bad idea, but he promises that this is going to bring the family back together, that this is going to make their family better, and she ends up going along with it in hopes that it will help her family. But it doesn't. It just makes everything worse. He becomes even more drinking, and the strain on his family gets even worse. His brother and sister try to help him. However, Phil denies having a problem and becomes agitated, unreceiving to his family's attempts to point out his drinking problems. And this, I would say, is the pre-contemplation part of change, because he's denying that he even has a problem. Even though his whole world's crumbling around him, he still denies it. So he also displays addictive behaviors such as denial and minimization. And one violent argument with his wife, Phil, says, "I'm not the problem, you're the problem," when challenged with his drinking. And this right here is addictive behavior and thinking 101. When not taking ownership and projecting onto others. Uh, Phil's addiction has impacted his family, especially Miss K. She has cleaned up his messes and tried to make excuses for her behaviors. Her sons have bore witness to Phil's erratic behavior and absence for years. All of his three children seem like the lost child in the movie, because in the movie, you don't see him interacting with his sons really at all. In fact, there's quite a few instances in the movies where he tells Miss K, "Take your boys," refers to them as her boys. He's not hands-on with him. You don't see any connection between them. You don't see any father-son moments while he's in addiction. Afterwards, there is a son moment, but before, while he's in addiction, there's really nothing between him and his sons too much. Um, so Phil starts to feel some consequences because he ends up kicking Miss K and tells her, "Take your three boys with you," out of their house. So Miss K leaves. He loses his bar, his kids, and his wife. Um, he then gets in a car wreck while he's intoxicated. However, this does not stop him. After he gets in the wreck, he's starting to kind of contemplate like a little bit of wanting to change or needing to change, but he's still not quite there yet. While Phil is dealing with his consequences, Kay now is on her own and is starting to break the codependency cycle with her and Phil. She goes and seeks help from a pastor. He sets her up with her three children in their own home. She gets her own job. She starts, seeing that she can do things on her own. She starts to put the pieces back together with her and her family, with her and her children. She's starting to gain this confidence in herself. And so his at one point, um, Phil's brother takes his children to go see him, and he is in a drunken stupor, and the boys are scared and unsure of him. And so he tells them to leave. He says, "Just leave," and they leave. After they leave, he has a moment where he is just overwhelmed with emotion. He hits his bottom out in the woods by himself. He starts to reflect on the pain he has caused his family. Memories start flashing back of the things he's done to his family and of his own childhood. And this is starting to be the preparation of change, because now he's wanting to make a change and he's trying to think of ways that he needs to make this change. He hits his knees and cries out, and he then tries to get Kay back with promises. However, Miss Kay will not take him back. In the beginning, she tells him that he needs to get help, and that she's not going to take him back just because he promises, because she's heard this before. So this causes Phil to seek help from a pastor. So this is the action stage of change. He's now taking action steps to change and be a good father, husband, and man. This pastor counsels him, and Phil decides to be born again with Jesus. This proves to be life changing for him. He turns his life around, stops drinking, and becomes a better father, husband, and man. This was a happy ending that does not always happen in families with addiction. He does. There is a point at the very end, it's Christmas time, and his old buddies, the teacher that he actually started drinking with, they pull up to his house and they're like, "Come on, Phil, let's go out and party." And he actually tells them no and sends them away, and he ends up taking his son's duck hunting with him instead. So that is the maintenance stage of change because he's now doing the things that he needs to do to ensure that he's going to stay sober. The therapy that I would recommend for the Robertson family is CBT, family therapy. I First I would meet with Phil and Kay together to discuss the issues at hand, and then I would meet with the children to get their view on the issues within the family. I think it'd be important because, as I noticed in the movie, the children don't seem to have a voice, really, or a say in anything that's going on. So I think it'd be good to give the children a voice, to be able to talk to the parents, and the parents to be able to work together to rebuild this family unit and give the and allow the children to have a voice to be able to speak about what they've been through, what they've seen, and how it's affected their lives, so that it stops in childhood and doesn't progress to adulthood where they do the same thing to their family. um as far as resources, I chose the Refuge Ranch. um I've actually went through that program myself. That is a 1 year regeneration program for women. It's on Southwest Martin Highway. And then Dunklin Memorial Church, I chose that also because that is right down the street from the Refuge Ranch, and it is the men's program. And then I also chose Our Village in Okeechobee. It's not a rehab or anything, but it does offer Okeechobee, like if you're in Okeechobee and you need anything like help with counseling, resources, anything like that, Our Village will help someone get in contact with who they need to be in contact with, or how they need whatever they need. Our Village will help them get what they need. So that is my presentation. Thank you.